With a day with SpongeBob SquarePants coming to an end, I've seen many posts on forums and threads from users who don't know what they should concentrate efforts on next. Thus, I'd like to present you the story of the Clockman, which has had a very similar surge to the previously covered Crackmaster. Let's get started. So, the first question many of you may be asking is, what's the Clockman? Well, the Clockman is an animated short that was said to have aired sometime in the 1980s on the show Pinwheel. For those of you who don't know what Pinwheel is, well, it's hard to blame you. It's a very obscure Nickelodeon TV show that aired from 1977 to 1999. The show was similar to Sesame Street, with puppet and human skits in between shorts and segments. The show was never officially released in any fashion, so even outside of the Clockman, a majority of the series is still lost. While descriptions of the short may vary, the most accepted plotline is as follows. A young girl loses a pair of new shoes given to her by her mother. After searching and being unable to find it, she decides to go and ask her local wizard to help. He decides to help her and gives her a new pair on a condition. She return home and tell her mother the truth. The girl takes the shoes but does not tell her mother. Thus, when she's trying to go to sleep, an angered wizard emerges from her wall and demands an explanation. He carries her away and they come to a compromise. She spends the rest of the night helping the wizard place stars in the sky. When she arrives home, she recounts the story to her mother. The second key question is whether or not this thing actually exists. Well, unfortunately, there's no real answer yet. As I mentioned earlier, Pinwheel is very obscure and poorly documented overall, so no one really knows whether or not a short like this did air, not even its own production crew. Though, at this point, there are many pieces of evidence that highly point to it being real. What are they, you may ask? Testimonies. Testimonies were what really fueled the Clockman's initial hype and legend, and how we got almost all of our information. In this video, we will be covering every single lead and piece of evidence that has been found or debunked due to testimonies. This video will be delving into new leads and speculation, so please remember, do not harass or witch hunt any of the names given in this video. So, as I mentioned before, the Clockman was actually first mentioned from 2002 to 2004. Despite this, it wouldn't be until 2012 when an interest in the short really kicked in. On Bungie's off-topic forum known as The Flood, a user named Commander Santa started a thread describing a cartoon he has been searching for since his childhood. I'm looking for a particular animated short that terrified me as a child. I've been looking on and off for it for nearly 4 years. Maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe nobody should ever find it. But if someone can, it's The Flood. He listed 4 clues, a drawing, and a vague offer for a reward. His 4 clues were as follows. Number 1. It aired on an old Nickelodeon show in the mid to early 1980s, target year around 1984. The show was called Pinwheel. Number 2. Pinwheel collected stop-motion and 2D shorts from all over the world, and he was almost certain it was stop-motion. He commented that it was most likely not American. Number 3. He has already searched through Wikipedia, TV Junk, Retro Junk, Big Cartoon Database, Toonerific, and YouTube with no success. He stated that this may be for quote-unquote a good reason. Number 4. He discovered 3 unrelated children's shows on 3 different networks shared shorts from around the globe. He listed Pinwheel, The Great Space Coaster, and Calliope. Initially, some gave doubt to Santa due to his story sounding suspiciously like a creepypasta. He was determined, however, to go down memory lane and stated that he was 99% positive that it had aired. I was homesick with the flu as a young child when I first saw Clockman. I was scared to sleep for weeks. I have to find him again just to get him out of my mind. There was little information, as the aforementioned testimonies from 2004 had not been found yet by the thread, so Santa wrote a paragraph describing how he remembered the Clockman. The Clockman abducted the little boy and took him to places he did not want to go. I can't remember where exactly, but I seem to remember the boy repeatedly asking to go home. Clockman just ignored him like he couldn't hear him. He kept dragging the boy through all kinds of scary places. I remember being scared for the boy and just wishing that Clockman would just take him home. Clockman did bring the boy home just before the sun came up and then disappeared inside the clock above the boy's bed. The short film ended with the sun came up and the boy's father came in to wish him a good morning. He never got to tell anybody about the Clockman before the story ended. You may notice that the story differs heavily from the most accepted plotline. This was because Santa did not remember the scenes before and after it, as his memories are all the way back from while he was in kindergarten. Santa was described as one of the most well-respected members of the Flood. So many were willing to at least help look into his claims. Many TV shows and episodes were pitched to Santa, though none truly matched Santa's memory. Of these included Goodnight Alfie Atkins, a short that had commonly aired Pinwheel, and Ebenezer T. Squint, a regular of the show. A day after the thread was posted, Santa posted more details he remembered about the Clockman. I am almost certain the animations were felt like. Clockman had a big black bushy beard and almost creepy as hell eyes. He wore dark clothes and I'm certain he had a cape. When given a link to the Davy and Goliath episode, The Stopped Clock, Santa stated that the short was not clay animated. He then posted a recreation of the scene from the Clockman, depicting the child being abducted by the wizard. I wish I could do the Clockman more justice, but I'm terrible with paint. Imagine that scene felt, sort of like a cross between Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and a 70s version of South Park. Clockman is not scary enough in my cartoon. After a bit of discussion, he shed some doubt on his own claim of the boy repeatedly asking to go home. I'm pretty sure it didn't, but strangely, I remember the boy repeatedly asking Clockman to take him home, and Clockman never listened to him, until the sun came up. I can't remember if it was just me thinking that, or the boy in the short was actually saying that. Remember, he allegedly only viewed this short once as a sick child, so who knows how accurate his memory may be. The search began spreading into 4chan's boards like Co, X, and B. Although it's difficult to find what was discussed due to lack of consistent archiving sites, we know that on one of the X threads, an Anon recognized the short and recounted it to fellow searchers. Holy shit! I remember this fucking short. It was like claymation with poorly made dolls, and the animation was really stuttery and shit. Unlike what the OP's image shows, the Clockman's head then recedes back and his arms comes out and pushes the clock open like a door, revealing a big dark hole behind the clock. Then Clockman hops out of the hole and the kid wakes up, staring beady-eyed at the Clockman. Then the Clockman starts doing like a weird Irish river dance. Oh, and the Clockman looks a little different from the picture. He was wearing like an all-black turtleneck sweater and a black bowler hat. His skin was green and I don't really remember him having a beard, but he did have a big toothy smile and two real big eyes with very tiny pupils. Santa responded to the post positively and said that it was similar to how he remembered the Clockman. The guy from X has much better memories of Clockman than me. He sounds spot on. His description is exactly like mine, but in my memory, Clockman had a big black beard. 6 days after the original post, Santa ordered some Pinwheel DVDs that were for sale. He also emailed the producer of Pinwheel, although eventually both proved to be fruitless. He researched the various incarnations of the boogeyman, but again, his efforts were in vain. Things were beginning to slow down until the 18th of January, when they found Michael Howell's post on Animation Nation's site. It was paraded as the most accurate description by Santa.
Holy shit! This is Clockman! This is a huge chunk of information! This is exactly right!
Oh my god, it's starting to make sense. Mr. Cheesy, your post might be the clue that finally leads to Clockman's capture. This is the backstory to Clockman. It wasn't a little boy. I probably imagined a boy as I was a young boy at the time, but I can almost remember the story leading up to the bedroom scene now. I'm tearing up. Seriously, I'm shaking. One BNet member named Pon Leo apparently contacted various film universities for help, but seems like little came of it. If one of these institutions are able to find the Clockman short before a collector, I have offered to donate the money to their institution instead. In January of 2014, Dycaite's search for the Crackmaster ended with the release of the short onto YouTube. Thus, he set his sights on a very similar piece of lost media. This was, obviously, the Clockman. It had been a couple of years since Santa's efforts, but there were still few leads he could go after. He tried contacting various TV stations that had broadcasted Pinwheel, but had no success in learning new information. There wouldn't be much progress until Dycaite decided to go after one of the few leads that had still been untouched, Michael Howe.
On the surface, these descriptions are actually quite different, but both contain one very crucial thing, which is, of course, the man coming out of the clock. Now, upon first reading Michael W. Howe's post, it became clear to me that there was some short out there, where a man eerily comes out of a clock and steals a child away.
Dycaite had been attempting to contact Michael for months, but wasn't successful as Michael never recognized the contact info in his emails. After Dycaite found the Rapid City kids during Found Media Week, however, Michael reached out to him, and they begun discussing Pinwheel.
I decided to send the rundown to Commander Santa, who confirmed that it was indeed one and the same as the Clockman short he had originally described, but that he must have misremembered certain parts of it.
Dycaite then began individually contacting people involved with the production/broadcast of Pinwheel, with the summary supplied. He was immediately successful in contacting Michael Karp, who wrote, directed, and voice acted for various Pinwheel-related content. Oddly enough, I have a very vague memory of the short you describe. Snatches of memory of the wizard appearing and disappearing especially. I'm thinking that the film was purchased for the first season of Pinwheel from 1980 to 81. He directed Dycaite to TIPPI Fortune, an executive producer of Pinwheel. TIPPI told Dycaite this: "Most of our films were acquired from Co-Films Incorporated. Co-Films had a library of shorts from around the world, the UK, Scandinavia, and Eastern Europe, and a thriving business selling to various cable companies such as HBO for their interstatal programming." Dycaite did manage to contact other Pinwheel staff, but they were unable to provide information he hadn't gotten from Michael and TIPPI. As for Coe Films, sadly, Bernice Coe passed away in 2001. Dycaite is currently in contact with her daughter Jane, though he has not received a response in quite a while. Well, now you know all our clues and leads, or lack thereof. Really, we have two ways of finding the Clockman. Number 1, archival footage. Me and Dycaite have scoured through every single Pinwheel episode currently available, including those on my spleen. That is really our only consistent option, shifting through old recordings on Pinwheel. If you know anybody who's recorded Pinwheel episodes or owns a personal collection, please contact one of us using the information on the screen. The target years would have been through 1982 to 87, due to Michael Karp's time at Pinwheel and Michael Howe's personal estimate. Number 2, Coe Films. Our second hope is to contact employees who have worked at Coe Films. The only one we have managed to contact has been noticeably silent for 2 months, so any help would be appreciated.
If you know anyone who might know anything about where to find Clockman, anything at all, maybe you know someone who collects VHS tapes that might have recorded some Pinwheel, or maybe you know someone who works at Nickelodeon, anything like that, please pass this information on.
Now, before we leave, just one last thing.
Please refrain from contacting anyone that I've already contacted about this. The last thing I want to do is inundate them with emails. So Jane Coe, TIPPI Fortune, all the names that I've mentioned here have already A, given all the info they have, or B, not yet responded, in which case I feel it's best to just wait it out, be patient, and see what happens.
By the way, if you're wondering where these audio excerpts come from, Dycaite has made his own video regarding Clockman, more so his personal experience in finding it. I only summarized this information here, so be sure to check out his video for his full story.